That ring is cursed. Trust me. The words cut through the soft music before Nathaniel Whitmore could slide the ring onto Victoria Hale's finger. For one long second, nobody moved. Crystal glasses hovered above linen-covered tables. A violinist near the fireplace stopped mid-note. Even the golden chandelier seemed to hold its breath. Nathaniel slowly turned toward the voice. At the far end of the marble room stood 8-year-old Olivia Brooks, a small black girl in a navy blue dress, her old silver bracelet visible beneath one sleeve. She had not shouted. She had simply spoken with a certainty that made the billionaire's hand pause above the velvet box. Victoria gave a nervous laugh. "Excuse me." Olivia took one careful step forward. Her eyes never left the ring. "Please don't put it on." Nathaniel studied her face. He was a man accustomed to boardrooms, billion-dollar decisions, and people choosing every word around him. Yet this child had just stopped the most important moment of the evening with 5 quiet words. "Olivia," one of the household staff members whispered, "you shouldn't interrupt." Olivia glanced at him, then back at Nathaniel. "I know." Her voice remained calm. "But my grandmother told me I had to say something if I ever saw that ring." The room changed. Nathaniel's fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the velvet box. "Your grandmother?" he asked. Olivia nodded. Her name was Evelyn Brooks. The name struck him differently. Nathaniel's expression shifted almost imperceptibly because Evelyn Brooks was not a stranger to the Whitmore family. She had worked in his parents' household decades ago, long before Nathaniel became one of America's most powerful businessmen. Victoria stepped closer to him. "Nathan, this is ridiculous. It's just an antique ring." Olivia looked at her. "No, it's not." The confidence in the child's voice silenced the room again. Nathaniel lowered the box a few inches. "Then tell me what you know." Olivia hesitated. Her small hand moved to the silver bracelet around her wrist. "Grandma said the real ring belonged to your family." Nathaniel stared at the emerald set in the center. "It does. She said the real one never left the family." A faint murmur traveled across the room. Victoria's smile disappeared. Nathaniel looked down at the ring again, suddenly seeing details he had ignored moments before. The old setting, the tiny mark beneath the stone, the unusual engraving inside the band. He had examined the ring only once before, and the family records had assured him it was authentic. But Olivia was looking at it as if she recognized something he had never noticed. "How could you possibly know that?" Nathaniel asked. Olivia looked toward the velvet box. "Because Grandma showed me a picture." She reached carefully into her small purse, pulled out a worn photograph, and held it toward him. Nathaniel took it. His breath caught. The photograph was decades old. Evelyn stood beside Nathaniel's father, smiling at the camera. And on Evelyn's hand was a ring that looked almost exactly like the one in his palm. But there was one difference. The engraving in the photograph was visible. Nathaniel looked from the picture to the ring. Then he slowly closed the velvet box. The room remained silent after Nathaniel closed the velvet box. For several seconds, the only sound was the faint ticking of the grandfather clock near the library doors. Olivia stood exactly where she was, holding the old photograph with both hands. Nathaniel looked at the picture again, then at the box, and finally at the little girl. "Where did you get this?" he asked. Olivia answered softly. "My grandmother kept it in a wooden drawer beside her bed." Nathaniel studied the photograph. Evelyn Brooks was standing beside his father, Thomas Whitmore, nearly 30 years younger than Nathaniel remembered him. On Evelyn's hand was a ring almost identical to the one inside the box. But the photograph showed something else. A small engraving could be seen beneath the center stone. Nathaniel turned the velvet box in his hand. "You said your grandmother told you about this ring?" Olivia nodded. "She told me never to touch it." Victoria stepped closer, trying to keep her voice calm. "Nathaniel, this is getting strange. A child saw an old photograph and decided the ring was dangerous." Olivia looked at her. "I never said it was dangerous." Victoria paused. Nathaniel noticed the difference. "Then what did you say?" he asked. Olivia lowered her eyes toward the box. "I said it was cursed." "What does that mean?" Nathaniel asked. Olivia thought for a moment. "Grandma said people became different when the ring was around." Nathaniel gave a faint, uncertain smile. "Different how?" "They stopped telling the truth." The words settled over the room. Nathaniel looked toward the people gathered around the dinner table. No one spoke. Victoria gently reached for his arm, but Nathaniel stepped away, and placed the velvet box on the table. "Tell me everything your grandmother told you." Olivia looked at the photograph again. "She said the ring belonged to your family, but the one in your hand was not supposed to be here." Nathaniel's expression hardened with concentration. "Why not?" Olivia pointed to the photograph. "Look at the inside." Nathaniel brought the picture closer to the chandelier light. There it was, a tiny mark beneath the stone, shaped almost like the letter V. He opened the velvet box again and examined the ring without touching the stone. The same mark was there. His stomach tightened with uncertainty. He remembered seeing the ring only once before, several years earlier, when his father had shown him a collection of family heirlooms. At the time, his father had said the Whitmore ring was kept somewhere secure and would never be sold, borrowed, or given away. Nathaniel slowly looked at Victoria. "Who gave you this ring?" he asked. Victoria answered immediately. "An antique dealer." "Name?" Nathaniel asked. She hesitated for the first time. "I do not remember." Olivia quietly shook her head. "Grandma remembered." Nathaniel turned back to her. What did she remember? Olivia reached into her purse and carefully removed a folded piece of paper. She held it out. Nathaniel unfolded it beneath the warm dining room light. 3 words were written in Evelyn's handwriting. The first was a name. The second was a date. The third was a warning. Nathaniel read the name once, then again. His face changed. He knew that name. It belonged to a man who had been connected to the Whitmore family for decades. And suddenly, the ring was no longer the strangest thing in the room. The name on Evelyn Brooks's note was Daniel Reed. Nathaniel stared at it beneath the warm chandelier light, remembering the man who had advised his family for more than 20 years. Daniel had been present at business meetings, family dinners, and every major transition in the Whitmore estate. He was trusted. At least, he had been. Nathaniel folded the paper once and looked at Olivia. "Where did your grandmother get this name?" Olivia answered carefully. "She wrote it down after someone came to see her." "When?" Nathaniel asked. "A long time ago, before I was born." Victoria shifted beside him. "Nathaniel, this is becoming absurd. Daniel has been loyal to your family for decades." Nathaniel did not answer. His eyes remained on Olivia. "Did your grandmother tell you what Daniel wanted?" Olivia shook her head. She said she did not know what he wanted. She only knew that he asked about the ring. Nathaniel looked toward the library doors. Daniel was still in the house. He had been speaking with 2 guests only minutes earlier. The thought made Nathaniel uneasy, but he refused to let suspicion become certainty. He turned to Olivia. "What else did your grandmother say?" Olivia touched the silver bracelet around her wrist. She said the ring was connected to a missing page. Nathaniel frowned. "What page?" "A page from your family book." The words brought back a memory. His father had kept an old leather ledger in the Whitmore library, a family record that contained property transfers, trusts, and important names. Nathaniel had not opened it in years. He walked toward the library, then stopped. "Stay here," he told Olivia gently. "I need to check something." Olivia nodded, but before Nathaniel could leave, she spoke again. "Mr. Whitmore?" He turned. The page was not missing when Grandma first saw it. Nathaniel waited. She said it disappeared later. He looked at the velvet box. The room suddenly felt different. This was no longer about an unusual ring or a child's warning. There was a history here, and someone had gone to great lengths to keep part of it hidden. Nathaniel entered the library and switched on the green-shaded desk lamp. The shelves rose nearly to the ceiling, filled with books and records accumulated over generations. He opened a lower cabinet and found the old leather ledger exactly where he remembered it. Dust covered the edges. He carried it to the desk and opened the cover. The first pages contained familiar names. His grandfather, his father, old properties, family trusts. Then Nathaniel reached the section from 30 years earlier. One page had been removed so cleanly that only a narrow strip remained along the binding. He stared at it. Olivia had been right. Nathaniel ran his finger near the empty space without touching the fragile paper. "What was on that page?" he whispered. Behind him, the library door opened. Daniel Reed stood there. He looked calm, but his eyes immediately went to the ledger. "I wondered when you would find that," Daniel said. Nathaniel slowly turned. "Find what?" Daniel paused. Then he gave a quiet breath. "The page your father never wanted you to see." From the doorway, Olivia watched silently. Nathaniel looked at Daniel, then at the closed velvet box on the desk. For the first time that evening, he realized the ring might not have been brought into his home by accident. Your father did not want you to see that page, Daniel said quietly. Nathaniel remained beside the library desk, one hand resting on the old leather ledger. The warm light from the green-shaded lamp fell across the missing section, making the empty space look almost like a deliberate message. Olivia stood near the doorway, silent and attentive. Daniel looked at her, then back at Nathaniel. She should not be involved in this. Nathaniel closed the ledger halfway. She already is. Daniel took a slow breath. Evelyn was involved because she worked for your family. She saw things most people never noticed. Nathaniel studied him. And the ring. Daniel looked toward the velvet box on the desk. That ring was supposed to remain in your father's private collection. Then how did it get here? Nathaniel asked. Daniel did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the shelves and removed a thin blue folder. 30 years ago, your father discovered that someone had been moving assets between family accounts without proper authorization. He started reviewing every transfer. Nathaniel listened closely. What did he find? Daniel opened the folder. Inside were copies of old documents, each marked with dates and handwritten notes. A property in Connecticut, a trust in New York, several transfers between accounts in different states. Nathaniel frowned. Why did I never hear about this? Daniel looked down. Because your father believed the matter had been resolved. Olivia stepped closer. Was it? Daniel looked at her with surprise. No, he said. Not completely. Nathaniel picked up one document. The signature at the bottom belonged to his father. Beside it was another signature that Nathaniel recognized. Daniel read. You were there, Nathaniel said. Yes. Then why is your name on these records? Daniel answered carefully. Because I was helping your father trace the transactions. Nathaniel turned another page. A date appeared in the corner. It matched the date written on Evelyn's note. His eyes narrowed. This was the day she saw the ring. Daniel nodded. Evelyn discovered that the ring was being used as a marker for something hidden in the family records. Nathaniel looked toward the velvet box. A marker for what? Daniel lowered his voice. A transfer that your father never approved. The library seemed quieter than before. Nathaniel glanced at Olivia. She was holding her silver bracelet again, the same small habit she had shown whenever she was remembering her grandmother's words. My grandmother said someone asked about the ring, Olivia said. Daniel nodded slowly. She was probably the last person outside the family who understood what it meant. Nathaniel looked back at the missing page. Who removed this? Daniel did not answer. Nathaniel waited. Finally, Daniel said, I do not know. Nathaniel gave him a long look. But you know who could have. Daniel's expression changed. Nathaniel, there is something else. He reached into the blue folder and removed an old photograph. It showed the Whitmore Library decades earlier. Evelyn stood near the desk. Thomas. Whitmore stood beside her. And in the background, almost hidden by the doorway, was Victoria's father. Nathaniel stared at the photograph. Victoria had told him her family had never been involved in his father's business affairs. Yet here was proof that her father had been present. Olivia quietly looked at Nathaniel. That is why Grandma said the ring was not supposed to be here. Nathaniel looked at the photograph again, and for the first time, he wondered whether the ring had been placed in his hand as part of a plan that had started long before Olivia was born. For several seconds, Nathaniel could not take his eyes off the photograph. Victoria's father stood in the background of the old image, near the same library where Nathaniel now stood, and the realization unsettled him more than the missing page ever had. Why was he here? Nathaniel asked. Daniel Reed remained quiet. Your father invited him, he finally said. They were discussing a property transaction. Nathaniel looked down at the documents spread across the desk. Victoria told me her father had nothing to do with my family's business. Maybe she never knew, Daniel replied. Or maybe she did. The words hung between them. Olivia watched Nathaniel carefully. She did not interrupt. She seemed to understand that the adults were finally asking the questions her grandmother had wanted answered years ago. Nathaniel picked up the photograph again. What happened after this picture was taken? Daniel walked closer to the desk. Your father became concerned about several transfers. He believed someone had altered records connected to the family trust. And the ring? Nathaniel asked. Daniel pointed toward the velvet box. Your father believed the ring was connected to the original records. It was not valuable because of the stone. It was valuable because of what it represented. Nathaniel opened the box and looked at the emerald. A marker. Daniel nodded. Exactly. Olivia spoke softly. Grandma said the ring always came before the missing page. Nathaniel looked at her. What does that mean? Olivia reached into her purse and removed another small photograph. This one showed Evelyn sitting at a kitchen table, holding an open notebook. On the table beside her was the same ring. Nathaniel leaned closer. Written across the top of the notebook was a date. It was the same date printed on the document Daniel had shown him. Where did she keep this? Nathaniel asked. In her bedroom, Olivia said. She gave it to me before she passed away. Nathaniel's expression softened. She wanted you to have it? Olivia nodded. She said I might need it someday. Nathaniel looked at the child for a long moment. Did she know you would meet me? No, Olivia said. She only told me that if I ever saw the ring, I should tell the person holding it to look for the truth. Daniel lowered his eyes. Nathaniel turned back to the ledger. Then we need to know who removed the page. He carefully examined the remaining edge. There was a faint pencil mark near the binding, almost invisible beneath the desk lamp. Nathaniel recognized the handwriting. It belonged to his father. He read the partial words slowly. Ask about the box. Daniel stepped closer. What did you find? Nathaniel looked at him. My father knew the box mattered. A quiet sound came from the hallway. Victoria appeared at the library entrance. Nathaniel. Her voice was gentle. Everyone is waiting for you. Nathaniel closed the ledger. We will be there shortly. Victoria looked toward Olivia, then toward the velvet box. For just a moment, her eyes stopped on it. Then she smiled and walked away. Olivia waited until she was gone. She knows, the little girl said. Nathaniel turned toward her. What makes you think that? Olivia pointed to the table. She looked at the box before she looked at you. Nathaniel glanced at the closed velvet lid. That tiny observation changed the question entirely. He was no longer asking who had hidden the truth. He was beginning to wonder who had brought the secret back into his home. Nathaniel waited until Victoria had disappeared from the hallway before closing the library door. The soft click of the latch seemed unusually loud in the quiet room. Olivia remained beside the desk, while Daniel stood near the shelves, watching Nathaniel with a guarded expression. Nobody says anything. About this, Nathaniel said. Not until I understand what we are dealing with. Daniel nodded. Olivia simply looked at the velvet box. Nathaniel opened a drawer and removed his phone, then paused. He knew a simple search through old records would not be enough. Someone had already removed a page from his father's ledger. Someone had brought an old family ring into his home. And someone had lied about where it came from. He turned to Daniel. I need the original purchase records. Daniel answered. I can get them. Quietly. Of course. Nathaniel closed the drawer. And I want every record connected to the family trust from that year. Daniel nodded again and left the room. Olivia watched him go. You do not trust him either, she said. Nathaniel looked surprised. Why would you say that? Because you watched him when he walked away. Nathaniel almost smiled. The child noticed everything. I do not know who to trust yet, he said. That is different. Olivia nodded. Nathaniel returned his attention to the velvet box. He opened it and studied the ring without touching it. The tiny mark beneath the emerald caught the light. He remembered his father once telling him that family heirlooms were never moved without a written record. Yet there was no record for this ring. That alone was enough to make him uneasy. A few minutes later, Daniel returned with a thin envelope. These were kept in the private archive, he said. Nathaniel opened it. Inside was an invoice from an antique dealer in Manhattan, dated 6 weeks earlier. The buyer's name was Victoria Hale. Nathaniel stared at the document. She bought it herself? Daniel nodded. According to this record, Nathaniel read the amount. $48,000. The price was substantial, but far below what a genuine Whitmore family heirloom could have been worth. That makes no sense, he said. Olivia stepped closer. Maybe she did not buy the real one. Nathaniel looked at her. What do you mean? Olivia pointed to the photograph from Evelyn's collection. Grandma's ring had a different stone. Nathaniel immediately picked up the old photograph. Olivia was right. The ring on Evelyn's hand had a deep green stone, with a narrow silver setting. The ring in the velvet box had a larger emerald and a heavier band. They looked similar, but they were not identical. Nathaniel felt the mystery deepen. Then what is this? He asked. Daniel examined the photograph. A copy. Nathaniel looked at the invoice again. Then someone paid $48,000 for a copy and brought it here as if it were the original. Olivia quietly said, unless they wanted you to think it was the original. Nathaniel looked at her. That possibility changed everything. He closed the invoice and placed it beside the photograph. We are going to find out who wanted me to believe that. At that moment, his phone lit up with a message from Victoria. She wrote that she had gone upstairs to prepare for the evening and asked him to join her when he was ready. Nathaniel looked at the message, then at Olivia. Do you think she knows we are looking? Olivia shook her head. Not yet. Nathaniel glanced toward the closed library door. Then we still have one advantage. Olivia asked, what is it? Nathaniel gently closed the velvet box. She thinks I believe her. Nathaniel waited until the house had grown quieter before putting his plan into motion. Most of the guests had moved into the dining room, where soft conversation filled the long table beneath the chandelier. Victoria remained nearby, smiling as though nothing had changed. Nathaniel carried the velvet box into the library and placed it on the desk. Daniel followed a moment later, carrying the old documents. Olivia stayed near the doorway, holding her silver bracelet. What are you going to do? Daniel asked. Nathaniel looked at the closed box. I am going to give someone an opportunity to tell the truth. Daniel understood immediately. You are going to leave it here. Nathaniel nodded. Exactly. He opened the box, looked at the ring for a moment, then closed the lid again. I want the library camera active. Daniel checked the security system and confirmed that the room could be monitored from the office. Nathaniel did not want anyone confronted or embarrassed. He simply wanted to know who would come looking for the box when they believed. Nobody was watching. He placed the ledger and the old photograph inside a drawer, leaving the velvet box alone on the desk. Then he turned off the main library light and walked back toward the dinner. Olivia remained behind for a moment. Nathaniel noticed and smiled gently. You should stay with the guests. Olivia nodded. All right. She looked at the box. Do not open it again unless you know why. Nathaniel paused. Why do you say that? Olivia answered. Because Grandma said the box was never meant to be opened by someone who already knew the secret. Nathaniel thought about her words, then followed her into the hallway. Nearly 20 minutes passed. The dinner continued. Nathaniel sat across from Victoria, asking ordinary questions and responding to her stories as though the evening had returned to normal. Then Daniel appeared at the doorway and gave Nathaniel a subtle nod. Someone had entered the library. Nathaniel excused himself and walked toward the office with Daniel. On the security monitor, the library appeared exactly as they had left it. Then the door opened. Victoria stepped inside. She looked around carefully before walking toward the desk. Nathaniel watched without speaking. Victoria stopped beside the velvet box. She did not open it immediately. Instead, she looked toward the hallway, then checked her phone. Finally, she lifted the lid. Her expression changed when she saw the ring. She reached into her handbag and removed a small envelope. Nathaniel leaned closer to the monitor. Daniel whispered, She brought something. Victoria placed the envelope beside the ring. She opened it and removed a folded document. Then she looked toward the door again. Nathaniel watched her lips move as she quietly read the first line. He could not hear the words, but he could see her reaction. She looked worried. Then she placed the document back into the envelope and reached beneath the velvet lining. She stopped. Her hand remained perfectly still. Nathaniel suddenly understood. She knew there was a compartment. That meant she had seen the box before. Perhaps she had even prepared it. Victoria removed the small folded paper Nathaniel had discovered earlier and compared it with something inside her handbag. Then she froze when she noticed the hidden camera. Her eyes lifted toward the corner of the room. Nathaniel did not move. Victoria slowly closed the box, placed the envelope back into her handbag, and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she turned once more toward the desk. On the monitor, Nathaniel saw her whisper a single sentence to herself. He could not hear it, but Daniel could read her lips. He was never supposed to find this. Nathaniel looked at Daniel. Neither man spoke. The truth was no longer hiding behind the ring. It was standing in front of them. Victoria left the library with the envelope hidden inside her handbag, unaware that Nathaniel had watched every second from the security office. For several moments, nobody spoke. Then Nathaniel turned to Daniel. I want the original records before I speak to her. Daniel nodded. I will get them. Nathaniel looked toward Olivia, who was standing quietly near the doorway. And I want to know everything Evelyn left behind. Olivia nodded. Grandma kept a notebook. Nathaniel looked surprised. Where is it? At my house. Nathaniel paused. Can you bring it tomorrow? Olivia shook her head. I can show you something now. She reached into her purse and removed a small key attached to a faded blue ribbon. Grandma said this opened the drawer where she kept the things nobody was supposed to find. Nathaniel stared at the key. Do you know where the drawer is? Olivia nodded. At home. Nathaniel understood that the mystery had reached far beyond his library. Before he could say anything else, Daniel returned with a folder from the private archive. I found the original trust documents. Nathaniel opened the folder. The first pages confirmed what Daniel had suspected. 30 years earlier, Thomas Whitmore had created a protected family trust. Several properties and investments had been placed inside it. But one transaction stood out. A large transfer had been scheduled on the exact date written on the hidden paper from the velvet box. The recipient was not Victoria's father. It was a company Nathaniel had never heard of. Who owned this company? Nathaniel asked. Daniel checked the final page. His expression changed. The ownership records were sealed. Nathaniel looked at him. By whom? Daniel slowly turned the page. By your father's attorney. Nathaniel leaned back. His father had always been careful, but this was different. Someone had created layers of secrecy around a single transaction. Then Olivia spoke. Grandma said the ring was not the secret. Nathaniel looked at her. What was the secret? Olivia answered. Who knew about it? The words landed heavily. Nathaniel looked at the security monitor again. Victoria had already returned to the dining room. She was smiling and speaking with the guests as if nothing had happened. Nathaniel realized that she had not acted like someone who had simply discovered an old family object. She had acted like someone protecting information she already understood. I'm going to talk to her, Nathaniel said. Daniel nodded. Do you want me there? Not yet. Nathaniel turned to Olivia. And you stay with the staff until I come back. Olivia nodded. Nathaniel walked toward the dining room. Victoria looked up as he approached. Everything all right? She asked. Nathaniel smiled calmly. Better than you think. She studied his face. What does that mean? Nathaniel placed one hand on the back of his chair. I found something in the library. Victoria's expression remained composed. What did you find? Nathaniel looked directly at her. A reason to ask you one more question. She waited. Who told you where the ring was? For the first time that evening, Victoria did not answer immediately. Her eyes moved toward the library doors. Then back to Nathaniel. I do not understand. Nathaniel remained calm. I think you do. The room around them continued with ordinary conversation, but the space between them had changed. Nathaniel no longer needed to guess whether Victoria knew about the ring. He only needed to discover who had given her the instructions. And somewhere inside Evelyn's old notebook, Olivia believed the answer was still waiting.